Hi, this is Mrs. Mankey, Woodland Hills, and I am here at Edgewater Community to help celebrate Veterans Day. And we are going to be able to talk to several veterans. And first we have Dr. Alberts. Dr. Alberts, you want to tell us first what part of the military you were in?
I was in the Navy.
In the Navy. And when did you serve?
I served during the World War II, rather by happenstance, because I was in pre-med, and because of my immaturity, as they said, I was stricken from the draft exemption list and drafted instead. The commanding officer at the Farragut Naval Hospital told me that your credentials are such that you should be in medical school. So they sent me to medical school. And so I was right back to the University of Nebraska again.
Was being in the medical field something you had thought you were going to do when you were younger?
Believe it or not, I wanted to be a physician from the time I was in kindergarten.
Wow.
And when the Korean War came along, I was called up for active duty again because of my commission, and received 10 days notice to report. And again, I escaped combat. I was stationed at the recruiting station right here in Des Moines.
Oh, wow.
And for 1 year, I stayed at home and went to the old federal building for my daily duties, and it was good. But then one day, another set of orders came through, and then I went to Seattle, Washington, and I sailed on troop transports.
Oh, okay.
And these transports were taking military personnel from Seattle to Incheon, Korea,
Okay.
and then bringing back the ones that they were relieving.
How long was that transport?
And it would take us 11 days to get over to Yokohama, and then another day or two to get around to Incheon, and then from Incheon we had to go to Sasebo, and then from Sasebo back to Seattle.
Had you been on a boat very much before then?
My first experience on a ship was when I first reported to Seattle. They temporarily put me on another ship to go to Whittier, Alaska. That first night, I was called down to the sick bay, and one of the butchers in the kitchen had put his finger into a meat saw.
Oh.
And so here I was, attempting to put his finger back together. I must admit here that these were things that I had never done before, because I'm a pediatrician.
Right.
and I had never done any surgery whatsoever. And so here was my first exposure to surgery, putting this kid's fingers back together. But unfortunately, that was the first time I'd ever been out at sea, and I put in a stitch, and then I'd go around the corner and relieve myself. I was so seasick that night, it was pathetic. And got the finger back together, and got up to my cabin and got myself back together. And the next day it was over with, and I never had seasickness from then on.
It didn't last.
But one night, a storm was brewing, and it was cloudy, and it was raining, and the wind was blowing. And a lot of people don't believe it, but a ship can go through an awful lot of torture, so to speak, as far as a storm is concerned. By that I'm saying the bow of the ship, the front end of the ship, would actually go underwater.
Wow.
And then come back up. And during the time the bow is underwater, the propellers on the rear of the ship, or the stern of the ship, would be beating in the air, and a horrible noise. And during that period of time, I was called down to the sick bay. Again, here, a pediatrician, never exposed to surgery or anything like that, and I had to do an appendectomy.
Wow.
And there was another doctor on board, but in the true spirit of the Navy, he also was a pediatrician. So,
They didn't pair you up with different backgrounds.
They just put a couple of doctors on board. But he got through okay, and the other doctor and I got through okay, and so everything worked out fine. But that was my major experience as far as major surgery.
What was surgery like that was so different being on a ship than being on dry land?
The ship was going like this, and we had to stand with our legs apart in order to maintain our balance.
Mm-hmm.
And the instruments would slip off the operating table, and we had to anchor them down with what we call towel clips,
Mm-hmm.
and so they wouldn't slide off.
Yeah.
In the meantime, the captain of the ship would call down and say, "Aren't you guys through yet? I've got to get back on course."
Oh,
And,
was he trying to be in like calmer
He
waters?
was trying to make things better for us.
Mm-hmm.
But we got the job done, and he got back on course, and the kid got along fine, and we did too, so
Yeah.
it all worked out very well.
Did you have access to most of the surgical equipment that you would need,
We had-
or
we had
did you have to be creative?
We had everything we needed. The only other thing is we didn't have anesthesia machines, and we had to give spinal taps
Ooh.
to do that, so.
And I can imagine that would be very difficult on a moving ship.
Yes.
You're trying to
And
access
and
the.
having never done one of those before either. And
Wow.
so consequently, it was a trial of errors, but we got it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was enjoyable. I look back on it as a good experience.
Right. If you can handle that, you probably could handle anything on dry land
Yeah.
much easier.
I was glad to get back with the young mothers and the children rather than
Right.
all these military people.
Yeah.
But then I stayed on in the reserves
Okay.
for that, and I stayed in for 26 years.
Wow.
And
Based out of here in Des Moines, or
out of Des Moines.
Out of Des
area.
Moines.
And then one of those that had gone through boot camp as an enlistee,
mm-hmm.
then as a hospital corpsman, and then finally as a medical officer.
Mm-hmm.
And my rank elevated all along the way until I came out as a full commander.
Wow.
And then finally they decided that I was getting old enough to be retired, so retired me.
And then you went on to do your own pediatric work
I
here?
carried on my own practice of pediatrics here,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed that a lot more than the Navy business.
Well, we really appreciate you sharing some of your stories, and thank you so much for all your service as we celebrate Veterans Day.
It's not exciting, no gun firing
Oh, I
or
think
anything of that
the
sort.
I think the stories about trying to do surgery on a ship would be very interesting for the students. So,
Thank you.
yep, thank you very much.